Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen, talking about some capital ships and gameplay associated with them. The recent Fleet Week gave us our first real look at the massive Idris-M and Javelin capital ships. For a lot of players, this is the apex of what Star Citizen can potentially offer. Dozens of crew working together to operate a ship with high risk and reward, or at least that's the plan when they're in players' hands. The Idris is around 250 meters long, it's a frigate, it's got some quite big guns and room for a few fighters to operate out of. The Javelin is half a kilometer long and is a destroyer class ship and covered in a massive array of large weaponry and turrets and room for a larger ship, but not the same sort of fighter complement that an Idris can muster. It's also the larger ship that is available for players to purchase. Even moving around in these large ships will take some time, and for $2,500 for an Idris, it's not something sensible to buy for a normal human. When in-game and purchasing them with the in-game currency, they are going to be a significant investment for a large org to get, be that Idris or Javelin or Idris-P or whatever version of the Idris that you're going to be getting. The Idris-P is the more civilian version, it's going to be a lot cheaper and more available. The Idris-M is the military version, much more rarer, although there are going to be upgrade kits, and obviously you can sort of like modularly change your Idris to whatever suits your needs. But it's going to be expensive. Both of those ships, the Idris and the Javelin though, they dwarf the current largest flyable ship in game, which is the 890 Jump, and that's only 200 meters long. And I say only 200 meters long, that's a ridiculous thing to say because that's massive. That ship is massive, the 890 Jump. It's got a full luxury like spa and swimming pools and things like that on it. The Idris and Javelin were flying around during Fleet Week though, and this is sort of partly an excuse to have some of my Javelin and Idris footage shown off, because I just wanted to have a bit of a tour of these ships and a bit of a look around on the exteriors. These beasts were only partially combat ready though. We had organisations and groups of players taking out these Titans too. They were supposed to be near invulnerable. They did patch this sort of like out halfway through Fleet Week though, making them even tougher and actually fight back more appropriately because they weren't really fighting back before. This took away a little bit of the fun because I did want them to be sort of like properly engageable, and if you're going to be able to destroy them and stuff, cool, it's something silly you can do during the alpha, but it was a very cool experience whatever, and it was even cooler when they fought back, I suppose. The ships didn't have interiors though, it was just the turrets and externals of the ship and some very basic AI controlling it at that stage anyway. So when might we see them again? Well, it's supposed to be that in 3.9 we had an Idris mission, but that got pushed back. The Idris wasn't really ready for that. It was supposed to be part of this Arlington Gang mission that's currently in game, actually, the Arlington Gang set of missions, but the end one doesn't have you fighting an Idris, which eventually it will have, and that's going to be quite a hard mission. It's going to have you fighting an Idris, and you're going to need a lot of support to do that. Like, a large percentage of the server will have to join you. Also, once you've done that mission, they sort of said that it might only be uniquely acceptable once by each individual person, so after you've done it once, you'll have to join another group, another party to do it again. So someone else that's already doing it, bam, you go in and join them. I'm really interested to see what sort of reward this is going to have as a mission, because if you're getting a huge amount of players to do it, then it needs to have a huge reward or some other sort of like little gifties for completing it. And I'm hoping that we see that Idris mission in 3.10, as the Idris is obviously at least partially functional to be in Fleet Week. Another potential for seeing the Idris is when Xenothreats turn up, an anti-alien outlaw group from Pyro. We saw some leaks showing that they're going to have sort of like large-scale incursions with this Xenothreat group turning up with Idrises and supporting fighters and moving around the planets in the Stanton system in a very similar sounding way to that of the Navy fleet during Fleet Week. They'll turn up at areas, they will be able to attack them and assault them though. There'll be sort of like locking down areas, it seems, and there might be some public missions that you can join in with. Now, obviously that was sort of like leaked information, and that might have changed heavily. That might not ever be used by CIG, although I would expect it to be. It's sort of like something that looks like they've got planned. Again, at these stages, it's only planned to be the externals of the Idris being functional, no boarding and flying the ship yet yourself. But even just NPC combat against an Idris, that's still going to take a huge force to take out and still be a pretty cool thing. So when are we going to be able to fly an Idris ourselves? Well, these are unlikely to be in players' hands properly until after Squadron 42 Episode 1 drops. When in players' hands, these large capital ships are intended to have large crews as well. So bear that in mind. And because of that, it's likely that we need some more sort of server tech. The current server limits are, if you're having like a Javelin or something, you're only going to have 50 people in a Javelin. You might need more than that. Or how are you supposed to fight a Javelin against a Javelin if two sort of like orgs want to fight if you can only have 25 people in each Javelin? Well, you could probably manage, but they want to have large crews. So Cloud Imperium had previously said that even like having 70 NPCs on a ship during their tests on a Javelin or Idris seemed to make them feel pretty spacious still. Like you could pack a lot of people on these capital ships if you wanted to do assault and boarding, or you had other purposes that you needed a lot of people for. So it's interesting because we need server meshing, we need network and server improvements and that sort of stuff before it's in players' hands really as well. Capital ships are going to require crewing to run. Even moving from place to place might be difficult for a single player to actually just move a capital ship, because you're going to have issues potentially with components breaking and needing repairing, and there's going to be maintenance work to do, stuff like that. What if you do get attacked? If you can organise it, getting a full player crew for the Idris is probably ideal, but at least player crew for the major positions once we have it in game makes sense. So what sort of positions are we talking about on a capital ship that you'd have? Well, you'd have the captain, you'd have the pilot, and you'd have the gunners. You'd also have the engineers. So you'd have people for lots of different sort of engineering / sort of station work. So this would be engineers for repairs, but also engineers and people working on stations that just control MFDs, so the multi-function displays, controlling shields, controlling countermeasures, stuff like that. So the basic operations of a smaller ship, but on a larger scale. You'd also have security forces, maybe someone that literally looks after the permissions on a ship, opens and closes doors, even that sort of stuff, detects to see if a door's been opened, command and control, planning out assaults and sort of commanding where other ships, if you've got an Idris, where your fighters are going to attack, that sort of stuff on like a hollow globe or some other form of map. You're going to need crew for any of the ships that you've got on board your ship, whether that be like a little runabout or if that's fighters. Then there's lots of other tasks that you could sort of roll into any other role that you want. So communications officers or people just running communications, logistics, moving things around the ship, organisation, admin, cargo management, maintenance. Do you have enough food for your journey? There are probably quite a few more, including like scanning management, people doing detection and that sort of stuff, controlling your scanners, detecting points of interest, detecting enemies. NPC crews will eventually be in-game to hire. They will have to be paid, but to what extent they require access to food and drink and that sort of stuff. I would expect as players need to eat and drink, that NPCs will need to eat and drink as well. They're almost certainly going to need access to food and drink, and that could restrict the sort of long distance of your ship. And that's one of the other things with these sort of capital ships. They're going to have a very long distance compared to other ships. They're going to be effectively mobile bases. And even if you've got a crew covering the main positions on a ship, you might want to get more NPC crew for redundancy or to cover all the other positions, because having redundancy could literally mean the difference between winning and losing a battle. Some people might be sleeping, some people might be offline, that sort of stuff. So you might not be able to operate at full efficiency without NPCs, really. Computer and AI blades are another way of managing a ship and its systems as well. Cloud Imperium are currently building out core computer systems that will allow you to have other functionality for ships, and you're going to be able to have like AI modules that help control turrets, potentially manage some other systems on your ship as well with those sort of things. Costs of AI modules and their running costs are unknown at this stage, as are the costs of NPC crews as well, and exactly how that works, exactly how you purchase them, exactly how you maintain them, we don't know yet. However, Cloud Imperium have said that player crew would be the sort of like best possible option you could have for a ship, then getting NPCs, and then AI modules. So AI modules, I suspect, will be relatively derpy or very simple. The costs of capital ships are likely to be incredibly expensive, not just for the actual purchase of them, but for their components as well, and for their day-to-day running. Fuel, maintenance, insurance, components, cargo supplies, all that sort of stuff is going to cost you a lot of money to repair, to maintain, and you're unlikely to want to deploy them constantly. Where exactly they go when we're not using them, That sort of remains to be seen. Can we just log off with them in a safe area? Do you need to take them to a capital ship dock? Can you land them somewhere? We don't 100% know yet. We know that landing on planets and moons is not advised though with such a large ship, as in some cases you might be too heavy to leave the atmosphere yourself. There will eventually be the Argo SRVs, the tractor tow ships, that will help you out of atmosphere if you are planet bound though. Again as well, we don't know exactly what's going to happen with the safety of our capital ships when you're offline either, or when some of your crews are offline or the owners are offline but others aren't, things like that. So we're still waiting on statements for them, but expect to see them in game and this sort of stuff in this gameplay to be iterated on quite heavily. There are permission systems that are planned, that are being worked on, that would allow different crew, different access to different areas based on the captain or the security staff settings. I don't expect that will allow you to trap players in rooms though, after you've sort of given them permission and then cut off permission from them with no possible way out. There are questions that need to be answered though. How will crew leave a Javelin when they log back in and none of the main crew are around? So you've logged off earlier, none of the main crew are around, you've logged back on. Oh, what can I do? All the doors are locked. So things like that. So what does a crewman like that do? Can they always have access to certain areas, or are they basically a stowaway? How are stowaways handled? Well, Cloud Imperium has actually sort of answered that briefly before, with the current thinking being that if you are not part of the crew and the security or the captain issues a leave order, you have to leave the ship. You can literally either leave the ship normally, or maybe you can sort of like click a button and it will respawn you or move you to sort of like the docks nearby or whatever. Then if you still remain there, you would be a criminal, or you'd be able to be engaged by the crew without them getting a criminal rating. So they could punch you to bits or whatever, or shoot you in the face. I suspect there will be a sort of like docked, locked and protected kind of thing while you're safe in a dry dock, but we don't know for sure. And you could probably still get very clever players boarding your ship and things like that potentially in the future. Will capital ships spawn and despawn or persist when logged out? We don't know yet. I just think it's important that players will be able to leave a ship whenever they need to, whether or not the main crew's online or not. If they were part of the sort of like engineering staff and someone forgot about them, or a janitor on board, and you all logged off and a couple of you logged back on, you need to be able to get out of that ship somehow. So what sorts of uses will capital ships have? Well, they'll be used for mobile bases, for orgs, allowing you to run missions out of them, move between star systems, have somewhere to rearm and rest. They're going to give you a huge amount of distance and supply at those distances, at those longer ranges. And if you want to go to sort of like the Wild West areas, the non-UEE zones, the unclaimed sectors and planets, you're probably going to want to take a capital ship in some situations. I would expect them to be very expensive to deploy though, constantly for like missions and for fights, but they probably will be needed in larger scale missions or raids to fight against NPC fleets or enemy capital ships. Another org, you might want to attack their capital ships or dislodge one of their bases. The full extent of the gameplay that's going to be there with base building on planets and unclaimed systems, that does remain to be seen, but I would expect orgs and capital ships to contest those areas. When in players' hands, the Javelin and Idris-P will come with a base loadout. It was originally said that the Javelin would be an empty hull that you had to completely outfit, but that does now seem to have changed, so you will get a loadout of some kind so you can fly it straight from the off. I'm looking forward to boarding actions though. When we have physicalized components for ships, we're going to see ships much more often disabled rather than exploding, and crews may attempt to repair their crippled ships or use escape pods or whatever, so it might be in some ships' interests to engage a ship, disable it, and then board it. And if you're boarding it, maybe you'll capture it as well. You might have to fight the crew. That's going to be really interesting types of battles, and that's the sort of stuff that I want to get involved with. Also, it's very likely we'll see capture the Idris or capture the Javelin type levels for Theatres of War in the future as well, which is that more arcade, objective-based, Battlefield-esque sort of gameplay mode that Star Citizen's going to have, and they're working on at the moment. We will see plans and gameplay evolve with these ships as Star Citizen gets more development, and it will be backers and players that help shape that, but also the way that the development just goes with the technology that Star Citizen has available to it. We do need need a bit more tech to come into place before we have the Idris flyable by players. We need that server meshing. We need physicalized components, better combat. We probably need the interiors to be finished for the more civilian models or for players' needs rather than just the interiors done for Squadron 42's versions of the ships. But I'm interested to know what you think. Do you own a capital ship? Do you want to own a capital ship? Do you think we will see an NPC Idris again in 3.10? Do you think there's a chance we could see Xenothreat missions during Alien Week? Whatever your thoughts, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Every month we have a ship giveaway. For June, it's for an Aspira Tavaran Prowler dropship and Star Citizen game package, kindly supplied by Cloud Imperium. Just comment on any of my videos made during June to be in for a chance of winning that. Oh, what's that? What am I shilling for this month, you ask? Well, the same thing I shill for every month. If you need a VPN, then check out NordVPN. It's a cheap, fast, and has a load of benefits over free VPN services. Consider it for security, privacy, protection, content accessibility, and even to help with bandwidth limits. You also get a shipload of money off via the links below. I am BoredGamer. I was going to go with BoredVPN, but that didn't sound right. BoredGamer sounds perfect for my shillingness. Also, if you're looking for a gaming PC or a gaming PC upgrade, instead consider Shadow. It's a subscription-based service that starts around $11 or £12 or some euros, and that streams a Windows 10 system to your device, be it another PC, laptop, phone, or TV, using the powers of the internet, and there's a wide range of hardware to meet your needs. It means you don't have to maintain your own rig, so if you dream of 4K gaming and you don't want to break the bank, it's an option. All their services are very suitable for Star Citizen, but there may be a waiting list based on what country and state you are in.